The New Balance 1080 has quickly become a classic, but it seems like every year there's some type of change and people tend to either love or hate it. So how does the new 15 stack up to last year's 14? Today we discuss. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. If it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around the various parts of this video, but if you do so, I'd sure appreciate if you come back, watch the full thing when you get a sec, because I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. Now, quick disclaimers and disclosures, I did receive both of these shoes directly from New Balance for the purpose of review. That being said, I'm not paid, I'm not given talk tracks, talking points, no one watches the videos beforehand, I'm not obligated to make any specific content, and all thoughts are entirely my own. With that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of the shoe. Now, the 1080 has always been a little bit of a confusing shoe to not just me, but I think to the running world in general, because it has always been very soft, very cushiony, but it's not necessarily the recovery day option, especially with the More from New Balance. So really, the 1080 is going to be kind of a daily trainer. I think it still skews more towards recovery, but for the most part, it's supposed to be able to handle the daily miles, the daily just kind of the grind of training over time. As such, that's how we're going to be talking about these shoes today. Now, from a price standpoint, the 15 does come in at $170. It is going up $5 from last year's $165, and I believe that it last year also went up $5 from $160. So we are seeing shoeflation. It is not unique to these shoes. It is across the board. I just filmed the review or comparison right now from the Metaspeed Tokyo and Metaspeed Paris. Those went up $20. So we're seeing it with every single brand. It's unfortunate. It is the reality of the shoe world that we live in though. Now from a specs perspective, there are some slight changes here as well. So let me just pull this up and break it down. The 1080 14 came in at 9.9 ounces, 281 grams, and the 15 comes in at 9.2 ounces, 261 grams. So we are saving a little bit of weight in the shoes. From a stack standpoint, you had 39 in the heel, 33 in the forefoot, and a 6mm drop in the 14, and the 15 has a 40 in the heel, 34 in the forefoot, and a 6mm drop still as well. So slight increase in stack, but honestly, pretty much the same. Now from a fit perspective, both shoes fit true to size in my opinion, but then fit a little bit wide. To me, the 15 feels like it fits wider, and that is across the board. So these are wide foot friendly shoes. New Balance tends to be fairly wide foot friendly. The 15 to me is going to be a little wider than the 14. Now from an upper perspective, pretty decent change here. So this is an engineered like molded mesh or molded breathable upper. So you can see that there's these kind of not panels, but molded sections. And then when you don't have that those areas bumping up, that's actually a fairly breathable, thinner material. So you know, you still get a comfortable heel. You still have a kind of mid-weight tongue. That tongue is gusseted, which is very nice. And I believe, yes, it is gusseted in the 14 as well, but you get a slightly more breathable yet equally comfortable upper. With the 14, you had that engineered woven mesh, and it is very, very comfortable, but it was really, really warm. So for me, these were great winter shoes, and for other reasons, which we'll talk about, these are great winter shoes, but in the summer, they tend to be really, really warm, though very, very comfortable. From a lockdown perspective, I think the extra cushion in the 14 did make it a little bit easier, and then that engineered woven was a little bit more flexible of an upper, and it molded to your foot a little bit better. I'm closing in on about 30 miles on the 15, and I don't feel like it is really conforming to my foot in the same way. So that molded upper is a little bit less flexible, though it's not rigid. I don't want to make it sound like it's a rigid shoe because it's really not, but it is going to be, you know, a little bit more breathable, but maybe sacrifice a little bit of the comfort. Now, moving to the midsoles of the shoes, you have Fresh Foam X, which is we've all become very familiar with in the 14. This is, I believe it is actually an EVA, like a, it might be EVA OBC, but it is an EVA-based foam, right? And it is very, very soft. And to me, especially in the heat, it is maybe the softest, squishiest foam on the market, right? The biggest change between the 14 and the 15 is that the 15 is no longer the Fresh Foam X 1080V 15, right? It is just the New Balance 1080V 15. And the reason is because they put an INFINEON foam in this version of the shoe, which is a supercritical TPU. Now the INFINEON foam is still very soft. The difference is that it's a little bit more resilient. And what I mean by that is that the Fresh Foam X, it just kind of compresses under your foot, and it has, I will say it has a surprising bit of energy return, but it doesn't rebound as quick as the INFINEON foam, right? That supercritical TPU is reminiscent of, you know, if you've ever tried like Power Run Plus from Saucony, that's kind of what it feels like to me. I think a lot of people heard that INFINEON was more responsive and their minds instantly went to speed work. That's not what the shoe is for. A lot of daily trainers nowadays still have responsive midsoles, but they're not going to be the shoe that you pick for intervals by any means. Now, from a stability perspective, I feel like both are probably just as stable as the other, but the INFINEON being a little bit more resilient, a little bit less squishy, may give you a little bit more support over longer distances. I think if you're keeping it under an hour, I don't feel like people are going to notice too much of a stability difference, but what I found is with the 1080, my feet would get pretty tired over time. 1080 V14 with Fresh Foam X, right? My feet would get pretty tired over time, where I don't feel like you'd have the same issue with the V15. Right, moving to the outsoles, I don't know the exact outsole compounds between the two, but the outsole has changed and it looks like it has gotten a little bit thinner. I feel like the grip holds up just the same. I had a little bit of durability concern with the 1080 V14, specifically there kind of in the heel. I felt like the rubber was a little bit harder and would wear away a little bit. I did like the 1080 V14 that it had a little bit harder rubber because I felt like that gave a little bit more structure to the Fresh Foam X. With the 1080 V15 though, now with it being a little bit more resilient, a little bit less squishy, you can have a little bit less, a little less hard rubber that hopefully holds up a little bit better. And I feel like just from a pure grip perspective though, they're pretty much equal. I have no concerns with either shoe. Now, as far as my pick between the two, so far, I would say the V15 does fit my preferences better. A lot of people really like Fresh Foam X though, and with the, you know, with the release of the 15 coming in January, the 14 is going to be on sale. You can maybe even still find the 13 on sale. And in those instances, you know, if you really do enjoy the Fresh Foam X foam, if it works for your foot, if it doesn't irritate you, you know, that you like it that squishy, then I think it is worth grabbing a pair again at a discount. For me, the 15 though solves kind of some of the pain points that I had, meaning like the heat of the upper, the over squishiness of the midsole, to where the 15 ends up being a better option for me. At least, you know, I think I'm like 20 plus miles into it so far. So stay tuned for the full review, which will come after I have 30 plus miles on the shoe. I'll likely drop that in a couple of weeks, but I wanted to do a comparison as I know a lot of people are trying to decide whether they should stock up on the 14 or if they should already, you know, just be anticipating the 15. So just some final thoughts. If you watched this far and you're not yet subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell me what other comparisons you'd like to see, you know, what you enjoyed or what I could be doing better. On top of that, if you'd like to support the channel, please consider using any of the affiliate links in the description below. I have one to Fuel Goods. If you use RadDad at checkout, it will give you 10% off any fuel. So if you need gels, electrolytes, pre-run snacks, or whatever you are using in your training, if you're already going to buy it, please consider using that affiliate link and that code because it gets you 10% off and it does give me a kickback. On top of that, if you're in the need of any running tights, specifically, you know, full tights, the Wallaco Distance full tights are what I've been using on a lot of my runs as it starts to get colder. Excellent storage. I'm probably going to race in the Distance half tight just because of the total storage of those tights. They're very comfortable. I like the way they look. If you use RadDad20 at checkout, you get 20% off and I also get a kickback. I put all of those profits back into the channel so I can continue to grow and continue to get better and better. So just to wrap us up, I'll leave us with a question, which is, what is your opinion on Fresh Foam X? Do you like how it feels underfoot, or have you thought it was a little bit too soft? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.